I'm feeling high.
So I left 1 inch at the top for my sewing allowance. So this first line is my chest line, the second line is my bust, my under bust, my waistline, and finally my full length. So starting from that 1 inch allowance line that I drew, I'm going to mark my bust to bust measurement, which is about 4.5 inches. So now, because the blouse curves at a point, I'm going to increase it on my under bust line by under ½ inch. So I'm going to mark 5 inches on my under bust line, as well as on my waistline and on my full length line. This is because the dress curves out, so I don't want it to just be straight. I want to create a shape and a fitting. So then I'm going to use my ruler to join those points together. And as you can notice, as I'm going down, the line is becoming a bit more slanty and not just straight. This helps in the fitting of the blouse. So now I'm going to create a dart. So for this dart, on my under bust line, I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of that under bust line. And on my waistline, I'm also going to mark 1 inch on both sides of that waistline. That is the midline that passes through the waistline. Then I'm also going to mark 1 inch below my full bust line, and I'm going to draw a line to join those points that I have made together. And I'm going to extend that line joining the points all the way down to the full length of the blouse. So you should have something that looks like this. I'm also going to do the same for the other side as well. So guys, I'm done with my dart. This is what the dart should look like when you're done. So at the top of that, my bust to bust distance line, I'm also going to mark ½ inch on the left hand side and 1 inch on the right hand side. Now I'm going to use my tape to also mark 1 inch upwards from my full bust line. And now I'm going to use a ruler to join that ½ inch mark that I made to that 1 inch point, and also join the 1 inch point that I made to that 1 inch point below the chest line, that is above the full bust line. So I'm going to just use my hand to smoothen the curve, but if you have done yours and you see that it's actually forming the curve for the bust. So I'm going to make it more curved so that it will not be so pointed, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors to cut it out. So now I have cut it out. You can see my middle panel for the front is ready. So I'm just going to cut the sides as well. Now to make the side, I'm going to simply place that mid panel properly, leaving like ½ inch, like at ½ inch on the side panel. Make sure that all your lines are corresponding and they are where they should be. So after you have placed that, I'm just going to mark my shoulder, which is 8.5 inches. The ½ inches is for sewing allowance. Now on that shoulder point that I have made, I'm going to draw a straight line downwards to my chest line. So this line that I have created is my armhole. I'm going to mark 3 inches upwards from my chest line on that armhole line, and I'm going to create a curve with my free hand to indicate my armhole curve. Now, to plot the remaining measurements, that is the round bust, round chest and all that, just make sure you place it as I am doing. Make sure half an inch, you place it at half an inch on the other part of the bodice, and then mark your measurements. So my full bust measurement is about 12 inches, and I'm going to add 3 inches for sewing allowance. When you get to where the dart is, make sure you cover up that dart and place it at half an inch, just as I've done in the top also. So just be careful to not make any mistakes. So my under bust measurement is about 13 inches, and I'm also going to add sewing allowance of 3 inches. I also did the same for the waist measurement. My full waist measurement is 11 inches. I was also being very careful to make sure that it's placed on about half an inch. And then after that, I added my 3 inches for sewing allowance. I'm also going to do the same for the hip measurement. So I'm going to enter my hip measurement plus 3 inches. So now I'm just simply using a ruler to join those points together. Depending on the shape of the person, the blouse should start to take form as you are joining the lines together. I was just making sure my measurements were actually correct, because I felt the shape was a bit weird. Okay guys, so yeah, just join everything with your ruler, and your blouse shape is pretty much done. So after cutting out, I'm just going to cut out about 1 inch from the base of the blouse. This is to make it curved and not just straight. So now I'm going to duplicate this front on the back panel. Make sure you leave 1 inch for your zipper allowance before you cut out. So now that I am done with the front panel, I'm going to cut that back panel in two, because I cut that on a fold. So I'm going to cut it in two where the zipper is going to fit. So now I'm going to create my back neck hole. So for the neck width, I'll be using 4.5 inches, and the neck depth, I'll be using 6 inches. So I use my free hand to create a curve. You can use your French curve to do this, but I just used my free hand because it was easier. Now I'm also going to go down from that shoulder line by 1 inch to create my shoulder slope, and I'm going to join that 1 inch point that I made to the neck width. So I'll just go ahead and cut out The next step is to create the back dart. The back dart is quite simple and not as complicated as the front dart. So for the back dart, I'm just going to find the the smallest part of the back bodice, which is basically the waist, and I am going to find the midpoint. So my midpoint is 8 inches. I'm going to mark that point, that 8-inch point. And then from my shoulder, I measured my shoulder to bust measurement, which is 12 inches. So I marked that roughly. Then on both sides of that my 8 inches point that I made, which is the midpoint, I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides. Now I use my ruler to connect to that 1 inch point that I made, and I'm also going to use my ruler to connect that point all the way downwards to the hip of the blouse. So my dart is pretty much ready. Just recreate this on the second part of the back panel. So now this is my front panel with my lining cut out as well. I'm going to go ahead and do my joining. And this is my back panel. Alright, so I'm going to be using paper stay to make the blouse a little bit more firm. I have ironed the paper stay. I used 3 layers of this paper stay. So I'm going to go ahead now and sew the 2 sides together. So this is what your blouse should look like after you have sewed the sides together. Always sew from the base to the top. So I have cut out my lining. I'm going to go ahead and do my neck. So for my neck, I will be using 4.5 inches as my neck width, just as I did in the back. And then I'm going to use 6 inches for my neck depth. So you just use a curve or your free hand to join those 2 points together. And go ahead and cut. I also went down by 1 inch on that shoulder line and then connected that 1 inch point to the neck width. This is for my shoulder slope. I did this in the back panel, and I'm also doing it for the front panel as well. Now I'm just simply going to join my lining to the front of the blouse. As you can see, I have joined my lining. Right sides are facing each other, and I sewed on the wrong side. So after cutting out the excess fabric, I'm just going to turn it over. Okay guys, so I have joined all the parts of the lining and I have actually turned it over, and I have given it a good press also. So I'll just go ahead now to join the shoulder. I'm trying to create an invisible stitch in the shoulder. So I have joined it now. This is what it looks like, remaining the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I'm going to use this rectangle which I have folded in 2, and now I'm folding it in a triangle form, and I'll plot my round sleeve measurement divided by 4. So my round sleeve measurement divided by 4 is 4 inches. So I have marked that, and then the length I'm using for the bell. This is the bell part of the sleeve that I'm making. So the length that I'm using for the bell sleeve, or the bell part of the sleeve, is 7 inches. So I'll just go ahead and also mark 7 inches on the bell part. So now I'm just going to use a scissors to cut out what I have drawn on the fabric. When you're done, you should have a bell that looks like this. Now for the top part of the sleeve, I am going to measure my armhole measurement, my armhole length, which is 9 inches. This fabric is on a fold, by the way. So I'm going to mark that 9-inch point, which is my armhole length. And the full length I'm using for the top part of this sleeve is 12 inches, which is exactly what I have cut out already. So then I'm also going to measure my round sleeve measurement, and that is my round sleeve divided by 2, which is 8 inches. So I'm going to mark that 8-inch point and then connect with my ruler. Now I'm just going to try and create a curve to join the armhole. To make this curve, I'm going to mark 4 inches on that line that I made, and then I'm going to make the curve to reach that 4-inch point. You can use your French curve to do this. So now that I am done, I have cut it out, and I'm just going to go ahead and line it. Now I have added my lining, as you can see, to the bell part and to the top part of the sleeve. So I will simply just join them together and then attach it to the blouse. So I'm going to join the bell part like this to the top part of the sleeve first. As you can see, guys, I am done. I have joined everything and it's looking pretty good. So guys, this is the outfit. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please do subscribe if you haven't, and like and share and comment, and I will see you guys in my next video.